Welcome to Teachers Transition Podcast, a show dedicated to supporting teachers transition in, through, and out of education. Grab your seat and let's talk about how to make your next transition a successful one. Well, happy Sunday, everyone. It's another wonderful episode of Teachers Transition Podcast, and I'm so deeply honored to have a good buddy of mine. We call each other brothers. His name is Mr. Rick Magnani. And we have a long shared history together. And when I thought of this podcast, I couldn't think of no other person that has a wealth of knowledge. So I want to welcome him to the show today. And Rick, tell us kind of about yourself. You're married, your background, who you are.
I'm married. I've been married 32 years and we got together 5 years before that. I have a long history because I'm old.
No, you're not.
Let's see. Well, I went to Berklee College of Music when I was, when I left, a year after I left high school. And I went into music education. I got my master's degree from Stony, Brook University. I taught for 26 years in Baldwin. I did some teaching in Massachusetts before I moved to Long Island, New York.
Does that mean you're a Boston fan?
I am a total Boston fan. All four teams. Don't hate
I love you.
I know. I love you too. So, and I'm retired from teaching, and I have been doing a whole lot of music gigs, at least once a week, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times a week. So that's my retirement job, and I'm loving it. It's just been great. I spend a lot of time at the gym. I play pickleball. I play golf once or twice a week. Those are my interests. I can't play hockey anymore. I played a lot of hockey. And did I get everything? I don't know. I think so. I have a daughter who lives home. My wife and daughter live with me, and she's a therapist. My wife is also a retired teacher.
Okay. And we understand you're a dog lover as well, too. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, we've done a lot of work with rescuing dogs. And we actually have 2 right now, Winnie or Winifred and Dobby. And they're both, we went to the small dogs these days because I don't like big dogs on my lap anymore.
Gotcha. Well, so thank you so much for joining us today. Teachers Transition Podcast is a podcast helping teachers transition in, transition through, and in some cases transition out. And, you have a very unique story in terms of you spent the entire career through teaching. And I thought, as I said before, no other wise person that has a wealth of experience. And can you kind of give us an insight to you starting teaching and how the education world seemed and dealing with students, at the beginning of your career?
Well, you have to understand, I didn't really start teaching full time until I was 36. So I had been through, it was like my second career. My first career was basically working. I was doing quite a bit of private teaching and teaching some in public schools in Massachusetts. And, I was a fitness instructor. I was a construction mason. I did a lot of different things, and all that I think helped me. You can't have too many skills if you're going to teach. Because it's really, there are so many things other than teaching that you end up doing: administrating, fixing things in your room, fixing instruments. There's just a whole bunch of things that we ended up doing that nobody really knew that we would have to do until you actually get on the job. And it's like one of the things I found interesting was that how little college had to do with my job. You really learn how to do a job when you're on the job. That's how you learn because, you're in it. And
in the trenches, yes.
Right, exactly. It's kind of just like learning to swim by throwing somebody in the pool. And that's kind of how it was. Transitioning from that to here, I moved from Boston and I had all kinds of connections up there. And then when I moved here, they were all gone. So I had to foster a lot of new relationships. My first job, I had a pickup truck. So I went out and raked leaves because it was October and I went out and raked leaves for people. That was my first job. And then in the spring here, I went and I cleaned swimming pools for a long time before I got my job, my first full fall here. And, like I said, it was just a lot of it was about knowing how to do a lot of different things and having a lot of different experiences. And I was just very fortunate to get the job because there had been a lot of layoffs at that point in the teaching world. And my music director said he had a pile of resumes on his desk for the job. And I said, I'm going to do the best I can. And I was lucky I got the job, the first one I applied for. So it was just luck. It depends who's looking at you, and what they're looking for. Whoever the interviewer happens to be is looking for a certain things, and every interviewer is going to be looking for something different. So
Yes.
I was blessed to hit it correctly. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And speaking of, having to do so much, I want to, publicly thank you because, you helped, me start my career and, watching you every day and seeing your work ethic and seeing, your no quit attitude and, being flexible and making things work when you don't have the funds and, dealing with difficult circumstances was a model for me that I really appreciate because they're so many teachers today, I've seen, even in my experience now, they, expect everything to be handed to them. They expect everything to just to fall in place. And, you taught me that, you can make anything work and, you have to be resilient. You have to put in the time and, you have to do the work. And, if you do, you're going to have a successful program. And definitely looking back, shout out to Meadow Elementary School that we worked together for so many years, had so many great concerts together and, definitely impacted thousands of students during that time through music. And, I count it a privilege to be able to work with you every year. For those teachers that have to work with other, teachers, whether you're a specialist teacher or if you're someone in the grade level, or in my case, you're working with the band teacher, sometimes, working with someone can be a challenge for personalities, for issues of, is my program better than yours? Is my, is your program getting more spotlight? Honestly, I've never in the 15, 16 years we worked with ever felt that, you valued anyone else's program, even including mine, higher. And, you always did whatever you could to support our collective program. And, there are so many kids that got an opportunity to shine at, at Meadow Elementary School. Shout out to Baldwin School District for their strong music program. I even, have some students that now they're in their mid 30s, that kind of recall those moments and, really kind of look back and really treasure, even parents, those good old days, as they say, kind of, talk us through, was there someone before you that kind of, gave you those ropes? You just had to kind of learn on your own because so many teachers, are looking for mentors or maybe not have someone to, to give them some direction.
I was I was quite blessed to have. I actually had two mentors, but my main one was a guy named Bill Zurcher, and he was
Yes.
Extremely helpful. He was not in my building. The woman who was in my building was also one of my mentors. And she was helpful to some degree also, but he was really the guy who would, I could call him anytime and ask him a question. And he was always helpful. I was so blessed to have that, and it was critical. And I think one of the things you have to learn if you're a teacher, and you're one of these people who expects things done for you. I said you get what you can from others, but you also have to understand that there's a wall you're going to hit where you have to figure it out for yourself.
Yes.
And because there are situations where, whether it's a parent who has a difficult child, or whether it's a teacher who doesn't want to hear from you, or an administrator who just doesn't really want to help you with what you need. I was blessed to generally have probably 3 out of the 4 administrators that I worked for, music directors, not necessarily principals, but music directors. 3 out of the 4 were fantastic. So I was blessed. But when I was working with the one that was not helpful,
yes,
you had to just kind of, and I'm sure you know who I'm talking about.
Yes. Yes.
But, you just have to figure it out for yourself, and you end up doing it. And, like they say, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger, right? So it's kind of what happened.
Yeah. And can you talk about how did you navigate, because it's easy when you have an administrator that's supporting your program. It's easy when, you have someone that is your cheerleader, but what do you do? How do you navigate when that person is not, for you or your program and is not being helpful? What are some of the things can you share? Because I'm sure there's, people out there, teachers that are saying, okay, I don't have the privilege of maybe having what you have. How did you navigate through that difficult situation of that one administrator?
Well, it's one of those things where if you need something, you have to find a way to get it. Either that or you have to find a way to do without it. So it was a balance of those two things. If there were things that, that administrator was not going to provide me with, whether it was support or materials, there are times when you just have to, when it was support, I had the support of all of you. I had the support of my colleagues. Not having the support of him, I kind of had to secretly go behind his back because I had so many parents who were on my side. I had a very strong parental support, for almost every student.
Absolutely, I would agree.
And the reason for that was I used to make about 60 phone calls a month. I averaged about 60 a month for, speaking to, contacting them and finding out what they needed and finding out how we could work together to do better as far as educating their child. And, so sometimes I had to go behind the back, and then the parent would get involved secretly. And, I would just say, look, if you want this to work, make sure you don't tell them that I initiated it.
Yes.
Because if you tell them that, then it's not going to work. So when you tell them that, they understand, and that they, a few calls, they make a few calls to the administration, and it trickles down, and all of a sudden things are different, because let's face it, there's nothing, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And as long as I don't have to oil the wheel, I can just hand the wheel to someone else and let them be the wheel.
Yeah. And I would say, and I would say you could give, you gave me, and you can give so many other teachers a masterclass of how to win the support of parents, because it was so evident that you had parents. And, I take that from your playbook as far as, contacting early and frequently parents, not just for, Johnny's not listening, but, ways to work together. And, I was talking to a parent the other day, and, they received several phone calls, from teachers about that one student. And, I took, what you've taught me, which is, telling the parent, hey, let's work together. It takes a village. Let's partner together to help them to have the best success. It quickly went from a parent being, frustrated that another person's calling to, wow, okay, this person, is not just complaining, but he's willing and he's here to partner with me to help my child, get success. So, kudos to you, because PTA parents and band parents, they loved you, and it's because you did the work.
Well,
you're a nice guy, you're pleasant, you put on a great show, but you did the work, and it shows. And
thanks. I just think parents, I think they're always. I don't think there's enough phone calls that go home. I think, I made a lot of phone calls that were when the child was doing great also, which was a total surprise to the parent. And they're like, the first, and these parents are like, okay, what did you do?
Yes,
exactly. No, I'm calling because your child is an angel and he's a super high achiever. And I just wanted to congratulate you on your parenting skills. That buys you a whole lot of capital.
Say what? What did you say?
Exactly. That buys you a whole lot of capital. And the other thing is, when you, even when a child, we needed to alter behaviors, whether they were work ethic behaviors or whether they were behavioral behaviors, behavioral issues. I think the way you approach those parents is critical. If you go by, you don't say, Johnny's not doing this, or Johnny's doing this wrong, or Johnny, this is what's happening. What can we do as, you and I, can we work together to see if we can fix it? Because I believe your child to be capable. He's capable of succeeding. And it's just that this is not happening and that's not happening. So if we can get that happening, then we'll probably have a solution.
Just a few words, you change the paradigm of how that sounds and the perspective and what, it's able for a parent and teacher can do, opposed to, he's not doing this. They're like, they're like, okay, hey.
Right. They get
so sorry. I'll talk to them,
Yeah, they get defensive.
Exactly.
Right.
And like you said, and I got this from, teachers, this is an important thing. And I recently interviewed for a position where I had 3 interviews in one day for a position, which you helped me. You made a recommendation for me. Thank you. And Ed, our former boss, great supporter of our program, and another colleague of mine. And, I took one of your playbooks, which is calling parents for positive comments. And every administrator that heard that, it's like, I was like solid gold for them, because, we always hear about children and, that are having difficulties, but the fact that you're calling for something good. And even the beginning of the school year, I tell my students, hey, I make a joke. I said, do you think I enjoy calling your parents? They're like, no, 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 no. I said,
Yeah.
yes. And they say, oh, you're evil. You're mean. I thought you were a nice teacher. I said, no. I said, I like to call and say, hey, Mrs. Smith, I'm calling because your daughter is so wonderful. And then the kid's like, oh my word. Yeah, can you do that for me? And
Right.
it creates
It's a great
a
idea.
motivation for them to behave well, because what kid doesn't want me to sing their praises to the parent?
Yeah, sure. And at this
Like
level,
we say,
at the
exactly.
elementary level, I think the token economy was a great thing too. That worked
Yes.
for me. That worked really well for me. We had the things like a practice sheet where there was communication back and forth
Yes.
on paper,
Yes.
like on a weekly basis. Even if I didn't have to call, the parent would see, and the interested parents would see exactly what happened at the lesson, and would see what there were 5 requirements a child had to do to get all 5 stars and that kind of thing. And
Yes.
the parent would go home because the parent was supposed to sign it. The parents that signed would understand what happened at the lesson without even talking to me. So,
Yes.
but again, you have a whole bunch of parents that aren't really paying attention either, and you can't let that
No.
beat you. You kind of have to
Sure,
do
sure.
what you can do, and then you leave the rest alone. Otherwise, you drive yourself crazy.
Absolutely. And how did you navigate with, those parents, that gave you a hard time, or the typical, it's only band, it's only music, and you're trying to make your
Yeah.
program just as important as the academic subjects. We're not, just, prep coverers. We're not just, fill in the blank people. We went to school. We take our craft very seriously. It's not just playing an instrument and singing a song. It's developing so many important life learning skills. So how did you navigate with the difficult parents?
Well, one of the things I did is I would ask them, said, well, if you don't think music is as important, then your child is going to believe the same thing, and it's not going to do the necessary work to be successful. So,
Yes.
I mean, in order for your child to be successful, you have to believe that the music is important enough that it has your attention. That your child has to be aware that it's important, and you have to make that clear to them. If you can't do that, I understand. Not everybody can do everything. So, I don't want your child to leave the program, but I'm just saying that he's not going to enjoy. You're going to get all kinds of kickback, because when the child is successful, then they catch fire and then they want to do it, because
Yes.
being unsuccessful makes them want to stop, and being successful makes them want to work harder. And
Yes.
so
Yes.
you just kind of have to light the fuse. If you can lighting the fuse, if you can light the fuse, then you're home free. But it's getting the fuse lit that's hard.
Yeah. It's one of the privileges that we have is to see our former students, graduate and do so many things. I have, I don't want to call out names, but one of our former students, sent me a message about, doing, a Broadway show, touring. Recently I saw, on Facebook, students, one student graduated, top of a class, is going to be a doctor. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
He's one of your percussion. And you sit back and, there's so many other stories, but you sit back and say, wow, you had the great privilege to help shape and be a small part of, and now to see what they have become, and also that they're going to have children, it's just a rewarding experience. So, just great stuff. And
I'm always half joking when I talk to a lot of these like the one kid I can think of who he's a doctor, and he's like this serious, and I started him in music, and I'll make a comment on his page and I'll say, it must have been those music lessons that did it. But it's only half joking, because part of it is the discipline and
Yes.
the stick-to-itiveness, and in order to be successful.
I mean, there's signs too that watching the Baldwin High School graduating class, the valedictorian, salutatorian, the top 10 always had one thing in common, and that's music, because the multiple intelligences,
Correct.
teaching about working together, doing multiple things at one time,
Right.
discipline,
For
just the
sure.
art, just the joy, music matters. And, thankful to have worked in districts where they value that,
Yes.
because too many districts, they're getting rid of it. They're pushing, and I get academics and other stuff,
Right.
but,
Right.
one, it has to be a well-rounded educational experience. And number two, there are students that, this is their only, outlet. They're going to be struggling academically, but they can come to music and shine. I mean, I can think of a few friends that now, our good friend who does that special program, Miss Lucas. A couple of friends in her program where, they had some challenges academically, but I remember just amazing experiences in music class where they just created, all kind of musical experiences where I'm like, who are you? Where did you come from? Like, so it's those experiences. And I want to transition to, talking about how you navigated with a principal, because I think, it's one thing if you have a director, music teachers, art teachers, phys ed teachers have a director, and unfortunately they're not in their building.
Right.
While they're there, the boss,
Right.
the principal really is the boss. And,
Right.
kind of talk about how you also navigate. I know you talked about, how you navigated with a child,
Well,
with
it's
exciting and supportive, administrators.
it's all connected. It's all connected. Let's face it. If the parents are happy, your principal's going to be happy.
Yeah.
If you can get the parents to sing your praises by doing the
Yes.
things that I talked about earlier, you're not going to have a problem with the principal. And they come to the concert and they go, I've never heard anything so good come out of little kids.
Exactly.
And a lot of them did actually say that. And so, you kind of walk on water. And when you need something, if you can keep them happy, when you need something, it's there. I had a few little incidents with my parents with my principals here and there, but very few. I can think of one, but it was minor, and it was nothing that I couldn't resolve just by, again,
Yes.
parental support is everything. It's everything. If you can get the parents on your side, I mean, it was almost like under my breath, I'd say, PTA president, hey, I need something.
Exactly.
I need
Work your magic.
I need you to take care of this for me.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a game. A lot of it's a game, but you get what you need. For the most part, if you play the game.
Yeah. And for our concerts were like our state assessment. Our concerts
sure.
was like the school PR. So
Right.
when we had great concerts, it reflected well for our building, our principal, our district. So, definitely, for those especially music teachers that are asked to do, an extra PTA or a concert here and there, that goes a long way. I've done extra stuff because now I'm in the state of Texas. New York, every kid, sang in a concert. Texas is a little different. It's more concept focused. And then if there's concerts, they're more, here and there, not like, in New York. But I will definitely say that doing those concerts really had a tremendous impact. It was a lot of work, and shout out to, not only to you, but Holly and Maya and all those, and all of our Baldwin music staff that
Right.
really have transformed the program, put in the work, and it shows, and the kids always shine. And I can definitely say there are many, many times where right before the concert, the day before, the kids literally gonna give me a heart attack because they're, doing stuff like they never did. And then, of course, on the day of,
Right.
cameras are up there, parents are happy, the kids are singing their hearts, playing their instruments, their hearts out. And then it's like, okay, yes.
They try
That's
harder.
why we do what we do.
Right. They try harder that day.
Exactly. But the day before, that's why I have these gray hairs. Like, what are you doing? Like, you've never done this before. Why? You forget word, like, oh,
For sure.
my word. So,
Yeah.
So transitioning to, mentoring teachers. I know that you had, during your, amazing career, you worked or at least helped, as a union rep or, as an advisor. Can you talk about, some of the things that you try to do to help me and other young teachers navigate through, this environment?
Well, again, I think you just you show them what you do. They can choose to take it or leave it. I had, several student teachers, and I know some of them are just outstanding teachers now. Now, how much I had to do with that, I don't know. I think they were probably outstanding people and hard workers already. I didn't instill that in them, but I just gave them little tips like my mentors gave me. They'd come with me to a problem. And then ask, what do you do about this? And they this is how I handle it. And if it fits your personality to do it that way, then feel free to steal the idea. Generally, they would listen for the most part, and be successful also. One of the things I did want to mention, I had dinner with Ed Chiarella the other day. I do hang out with him. He was our boss, and he's NISMA president, and he wrote a great article in the School Music News, which talks about the benefits to children outside of actually performing, or becoming musicians. And I thought it was a great article. If you want to look on the NISMA website, it's probably on there. Yeah.
So, one of the things, I think I had a unique perspective, with working with you that's unique to anyone else in the building, because, I would come into your room, during the lunch, or, we're talking about concerts, and, I would see you eating peanuts and other stuff. You kind of schooled me early about the importance of saving and investing and the 403Bs.
Yeah,
Can you kind of share to this generation? Because, I'm not hearing that as much as I did with you, and, the things that you accomplish, with, the college fund, and just hearing how you and your wife were able to practically pay for your daughter's bachelor's, you're just saving. And I always would joke with my wife and say, man, every time I come there, he's eating like peanuts and he's eating gerbil food. But then when when it was time for someone to go to college, you was like, oh, bam, paid in full. So can you kind of talk about the importance of that, because that's really important for our next generation.
A lot of my culinary habits at school were because I was busy the whole time. I didn't really take lunch. There were rare days when I actually took a lunch, because I would be doing extra help pretty much during all my free periods. Nuts were something I could grab and walk around and chomp while the kid is doing what he has to do. Because I had kids in my room the whole time. So so that was one thing, but the economy of it was also another thing. I think one of the things my parents taught me, my parents grew up during the Depression, and one of the things that still hangs over is the importance of sacrificing early so you can be comfortable late.
Yes.
I used to max out all my retirement accounts every paycheck and just live on whatever was left, and I don't think people do that anymore. I think they...
No.
I'm sure there were some, but that whole Depression mentality really stuck with me, and I say it benefited me, and I'm seeing the benefits of it now. I'm not struggling, and there's a lot of people my age that are. That was a lesson from them that I've found very valuable. But that was a two-edged sword. A couple of reasons why I was walking around eating peanuts.
Yes, but you know what, you modeled a great example, and you helped me even be a better dad. I remember the first time you I have this, I think it was some article or something about daughters. I'm like, article? What? What? You're going to need it one day.
Yeah.
And guess what? That same young lady's now 21 years old. I got to watch you as a dad and navigate all of that. You set the stage to help, and that's important, because teachers they just can't be just a teacher. You got to be a parent. You got to do so many things, at home, and balance those responsibilities. So, again, thank you for, the model, the lesson that, I was funny. I was on a cruise, and they had a volleyball tournament. It was for over 21. So I decided to play.
All right.
And then I got paired up with these 20-year-old kids. And we were, I think, the semifinals, and we were, I think we were down a point, and I got this big stop, and they were like, "Thank you, OG. Thank you, Unc." I'm like, I'm not that old, but thank you to the real OG, the between you, Janata, and a bunch of other teachers, you really, really helped, a lot of teachers at our school, by what you demonstrated, you provided a great example. I mean, you are in essence like a secondary administrator or role model because, you set the tone, you set the standard, and, as a result, we have longevity, we're
Yeah.
successful,
Yeah.
we still love our job, we still have an impact. So thank you, for what you have done. It's made a difference, and I'm
One of the
sure
things
people hearing that. Good.
things I would say is there's nothing that makes you a better teacher more than becoming a parent, because you don't really get to see that perspective unless you're a parent yourself. It gives you
Yes.
a whole different outlook.
Yes.
Like, would I want somebody to say that to my kid? One of those things.
Yes.
Nobody's perfect, and I'm sure I said some things I shouldn't have.
We all have.
Right, right. So, but it's just a different perspective when you've seen it from that side. So I think that helps you become a better teacher. But I don't know. I don't know if that's a good reason to have a child. There are plenty of good reasons.
Yeah, sure. And you mentioned about retirement. You have successfully gone through teaching and exiting. Retirement. Talk about what does retirement look like? What is the day in your life? And I see the pictures on Facebook every once in a while, of the beaches you're going and the friends you're hanging out with. So
it's
talk
great.
about
I'm busy. Yeah. I'm busy. I got something pretty much every day. I play play golf a couple times a week. I play pickleball a couple times a week. And if I'm not doing those things, I'm at the gym. And we went to the beach last week for our anniversary. And we're doing a few things here and there. Every once in a while, I donate platelets. But doing things that I should be doing. Probably I don't do them enough, but we do what we can. I'm having fun. I really am. Life is good. I'm enjoying it, and I'm so blessed. It's ridiculous.
Awesome. So I'm gonna ask you a question that people ask me all the time. Do you miss the kids?
I have to think about that for a second.
Let me give you my response.
There are some that I miss. There's
Sure.
There's a lot I don't. But, it's different every year. And there's always some that you look forward to seeing. And there's a lot that I hope he's absent today.
Yeah.
So again, it's never all one way.
Yeah.
But I can't say I do. Can't say unequivocally that I do. But I know a lot of people do.
Yeah. Well, here's my response to, people, do you miss, being back in a certain place or a certain district or whatever? And I say, my time there was, life-changing and impactful. And, I put my time and my full self in there, and I treasure that, but it definitely sets up, an opportunity for the next generation. When I think of, myself transitioning to Texas, that opened the door for one of my colleagues to, come in, and, other colleagues, same thing, so it provides opportunities for us to, to pass the torch,
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Forever,
Right.
So
yeah, you're the what's the one? What's the word I'm looking for? The seasoned one at this point.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So, definitely we, again, if I haven't said enough, thank you for, what you've meant to me personally, what you've meant to, Baldwin, what you've meant to students, across Long Island and across Boston, and not going to be, take it against you because you're not a Yankees fan.
Well,
But seriously, thank you for, your service, and thank you for, the people that will listen to this and will be inspired, and also that will kind of push forward. Because sometimes, we have some rough patches, or we get through months where we question, or can I do this? Do I want to still do this? And, sometimes it's just getting over that hump. Sometimes it's hearing someone else's story, how they have persevered, and also how it makes you thankful and grateful. One of the things that I am thankful for my experience in New York is, not only the districts I work, the districts I worked in, but also the fact that, they were union, working in Texas, in other states, you don't have a voice.
Right.
It's this is your voice.
This is it. Yeah, exactly. It's another blessing that a lot of people just take for granted,
And the grass is not always greener just because, you see someone else flourishing because you don't know their story, you don't know their struggle. Right. But, congratulations to your wonderful career. And, thank you for your impact to so many people, not just students, but.
Appreciate all that, Alex. I appreciate all you said. I miss performing with you also, big time.
Yes.
We had some fun doing that.
Yes, we sure did. Well, I'm hoping to get back to New York at least probably maybe the next month. I definitely have to hit you up and.
I have a piano. Here.
Yeah, definitely. Because I have students go, remember those concerts, and some great memories, and some the bond we have, and what we shared. Definitely at Meadow was definitely very memorable and life changing, and also I'm thankful to have the opportunity to work with you so many years. So thank you for your time.
Same here, Alex. Same here. It's been such a blessing to have you as my friend and colleague. Just you're one of the most outstanding human beings I've ever met. I mean, you're just a saint. I don't know how you do it. I would like to be as good as you. I really would.
It's the help of my wife. She helps me.
You call it help because you have to.
Yes. So for our listening audience, if someone wanted to reach out to you for advice or insight, can they reach out to you on LinkedIn or Facebook?
Of course. You can give them my email address. It's fine.
Okay. Sure. So we'll definitely share his links. And again, thank you so much for your time today.
Great to see you. And thanks for having me.
And thanks for joining us today. Please like, subscribe, and share this episode with a colleague. Keep learning, keep growing, and never stop believing in your impact because you truly make a difference.